sick? What the fuck is going on here? Anyway, welcome everyone to the Streaming Screams podcast. I am Glenn. I'm here with Jessica.
Hello.
And we are going to talk about some horror movies.
Maybe. Kinda.
Or, in this case, horror-ish movies, horror-adjacent movies, movies that you could potentially argue are horror, kinda.
Detective thrillers.
Yeah. We are going to be talking about Se7en and Longlegs. So, to start off with, Se7en, released in 1995, written by Andrew Kevin Walker, directed by David Fincher. We have got the main...
Is this his first big movie?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was this and then Fight Club.
Yeah.
I don't know what... What did he do before this?
I think he does have another movie, but...
I think it was mostly music videos before this. I know his background before... the big movies was...
Oh, yeah, he did Alien 3. I forgot about that.
What was that?
He did Alien 3.
Oh. Well...
I don't think he's really known for that, though.
Would you want to be known for Alien 3?
Yeah, I forgot he did the game.
The game is sick, though.
Yeah, but that came after this.
I really liked that movie when it came out.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in decades, but it was kind of a mindfucky movie. I liked it. Katie hasn't seen it yet. I need to show it to her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's on our list. So yeah, directed by David Fincher. We've got the detectives who are at odds immediately and who are opposites in every way. Morgan Freeman as William Somerset, a veteran police detective lieutenant 1 week away from retirement.
To be fair, he's like an asshole in the beginning for like no fucking reason.
Mills was the bigger asshole in the beginning.
No, I think Somerset is. He's just a jerk for no reason in the beginning. He's just like, you're young, fuck you.
I don't know, because the first thing he wanted to do was like go to a bar and get to know each other, and Mills is like, no, I want to get to work. Let's go to the precinct. So I think that's when they immediately ended up at odds. But it's kind of everything. Mm-hmm. They're literally opposites in every way possible, except for like they're both men, and that's it. You know? But yeah, Morgan Freeman as William Somerset, a veteran police detective lieutenant 1 week away from retirement, at which point he plans to leave the city. He has become disillusioned and pessimistic, thinking the world and particularly the city are doomed. He knows how to handle the bureaucracy of police work here, including some of the loopholes and shady things that he's not really supposed to know. He's methodical and calculated with an even temper and a cool head. He's also cultural. He's also,
so are you.
I know, right? He's also cultured and well-read, recognizing the literary references in John Doe's works immediately. And across from him, we've got Brad Pitt as David Mills, a young police detective who is partnered with Somerset. Despite being new to the city, he is relatively street smart. He's also idealistic and optimistic, but also brash, impulsive, and short-tempered.
Do they ever say what city he comes from? Like, I know the city that they're in during the movie is just a blanket city, but did they say where he is?
Farmland upstate.
Okay.
Yeah, and they don't like specifically say it, but he and his wife do mention a couple times what living upstate is like, and there is a point where there's a bunch of sirens and noise outside, and the phone rings, waking his wife up, and she goes, "I thought we moved here to get away from tractor pulls," which means farmland. Basically.
Yeah, because when we were watching this, Craven did ask, he's like, what city is this? I'm like, it's not supposed to be a specific city. Though it's clearly, I think, like old New York.
We will get to this. I actually, because the city is so important here, I actually listed it in the cast. Y'all should have seen the look Jess just gave me.
A lot of people do that, especially since I listen to like a lot of other like movie podcasts or YouTube movie reviewers, and I always think it's weird when they say like the city is a character in itself, or like such and such is a character, like some like location or inanimate thing is a character itself, and I'm like, whatever.
Generally, I actually agree with you, but even though it's not a character, it is sort of an oppressive opposition to pretty much everybody in the city.
But it's just a shitty, violent city.
It is very much a shitty, violent city. But yeah, regarding the city, Mills had actually fought to be transferred here, believing that he could make a difference, and he judges Somerset very harshly for retiring. Although he's a smart person, he's more oriented in the heart than the mind, as shown when he needs the cliff notes of the books that John Doe is referencing in order to keep up with Somerset.
Nah, that's just smart. This book is too long. Don't got time for that shit.
Okay, I would absolutely immediately go for the Cliff Notes.
Yeah, because how some of those books are like even Dante's Inferno, which is one of the Cliff Notes he has, really long.
No, you are not wrong.
He's got other shit to do.
You are not wrong, but that's not the purpose of him getting the Cliff Notes in the movie.
But...
The point is that, the point is he's trying to keep up, but like he doesn't even go get them himself. He like pays a different detective to go do it.
No, that's
a beat cop to do it. Then we have got Gwyneth Paltrow as Tracy Mills, Detective Mills' wife. She is lonely, cooped up in their shitty house with nobody but the couple's. Okay, is it a house or
it's an apartment?
Okay, because
a lot of cities have like big apartments.
Yeah, but they keep referring to it as a house. But I was like, I swear there's an apartment number when they walk in.
Yeah, it's
in
an
the
apartment.
Front door. But yeah, they call it a house a few times. Which
I don't know. If
I guess when we lived in apartments, we would also call it the house.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like when I'm on vacation somewhere, I still refer to the hotel room as home.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's where I'm staying right now. So it's like, oh, let's go home. And it's like, what I mean is the hotel room.
Yeah. I always do too. Although after that stint of actually having to live in one, I don't think Katie and I will do that anymore. It'll be like the hotel.
Yeah.
It was not fun living there.
No, I'm sure, but
don't ever let disasters happen to your house, kids.
Yeah, never. Just it's just something people let happen.
Yeah. We were totally asking for it when that pipe burst.
Yeah.
So she is lonely, cooped up in their shitty apartment with nobody but the couple's dogs to keep her company. She likes and trusts Somerset, who becomes kind of the closest thing that she has to a friend in this hellhole.
It's kind of weird seeing Gwyneth Paltrow in this movie now because she seems like really nice and like soft and gentle. And I'm like, I just think of her as a total psychopath nowadays.
Why?
She has the whole goop thing where she does like the weird like...
Oh, is she the one with the vagina candle?
Yes. And she also like sold jade eggs, telling people to put them up their pussies. And then it turned out like jade leaches into you. So she was literally poisoning people. She does all this weird woo-woo shit that's like...
I didn't realize that was her.
Yeah.
I always remember the vagina-scented candle, but I don't ever remember who...
There's a lot of stuff.
Because I also don't care about any of these people's lives.
Yeah, I don't either,
Whatever.
But it's come up in like other stuff because it's just, there's a lot of weird stuff to do with even the fact that it's called goop. I forget, it's an acronym for something, but I don't know what it is.
I think we all know what it's really referencing.
Yeah, but it's just like, so yeah, that's what I think about her now. So seeing her in this, I'm like, yes, before she went crazy.
That is funny. Yeah, I never really pay attention to any celebrity lives. Even when I was watching this, Katie was like, was this when she was with Brad Pitt?
I didn't know they were together.
I didn't either. Apparently, I guess they were like married or something.
No, I don't know. Yeah, that's actually probably true.
Or maybe just dating for a long time. Well, you know what?
Because I even recently just heard that Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez are getting divorced. And I was like, I thought they got divorced like 20 years ago.
Still didn't know they were together until just now.
Yeah, a lot of these people get together because they're in movies together.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. You're in close quarters for a long time. I guess,
but people are always like, oh, we're professional. Like, it doesn't matter. And then it's like, then why are you all hooking up afterwards? I mean, you guys do like...
What, you've never banged a coworker?
No.
Have I banged a... Oh, yeah, I did. Woo, that was a mistake. Never gonna repeat that. Just in case anybody who's ever hiring me or any of my bosses.
I guess I met a boyfriend at work before, but he like worked in a completely different department than me. Well, so I don't know if that's still a coworker. I guess it technically is, but we didn't work together.
For me, it was absolutely a very unprofessional thing, but it was like the job that I had while I was in college. It's not something I would have ever pulled in an actual office situation. Mm-hmm. But
also, did I say Jennifer Lawrence or did I say Lopez? I don't know.
You said Lopez.
Okay. All of a sudden, I was like, wait, did I say Lawrence? Because she's hella younger. I don't know, man.
Yeah, don't bang your coworkers, guys.
Yeah.
It doesn't generally lead to good things. Sure didn't for me.
Sometimes, but in general, especially if you like split up, you still got to see that person every day.
For reasons that I won't get into and actually had very little to do with me and her, the girl ended up not having a job with us for like a week, 2 weeks after we started hooking up. Again, not actually related to us, but probably for the best.
Yeah.
I didn't get in trouble at work. I just got into the worst relationship I've ever had. So,
Sure.
Speaking of bad relationships, we've got Kevin Spacey as John Doe, this serial killer. A mysterious, reclusive religious fanatic who is treating his killing spree as like an art piece, intended to shock the world and wake it up to how sick and removed from God society has really become.
So this was a really big deal that he was in this movie because he was like huge at the time because there was like The Usual Suspects and other movies he was in. And he wasn't advertised as being in the movie at all. He's not in the opening credits. He just wasn't on any of the advertisements. So it was completely hidden that it was him. And like he was like the biggest star in this at the time.
Which is why the end credits start with just Kevin Spacey as John Doe before getting into the actual credits. It's fucking wild that they managed to convince the studio not to put him on the advertising material.
Also, another person that is like wild to see and stuff now because I loved Kevin Spacey and it's like, ugh, that didn't age well. But he's a good actor. He's a great actor. You know, despite how shitty he may be as a person, he was a good actor.
yeah, he is a great actor, and clearly there's a reason he seems to be particularly good at playing villains and scumbags. Yeah. Because he's a villainous scumbag.
Like American Beauty, like
Jesus
really
Christ.
has a different take now.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And I love that movie. I haven't seen it in a really long time.
I know. Wasn't that your favorite movie for a long time?
It was one of my favorite movies, yeah. So is this.
Yeah. This movie, I don't think it will be any surprise when we get to the end, to our recommendations and all that. We'll just get out of the way now. This movie is a goddamn masterpiece.
I think so, yes.
It's legitimately one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. And even when we were like, I don't know, does that really count as horror? We were both just kind of like, fuck it. It's great.
Well, I think it does not count as horror. I don't, because I think horror movies have to have an intent of scaring you. And I don't think this movie is scary.
I'm on the fence about it because there's enough scary and horrifying imagery, and there is an existential fear to the whole thing.
Yeah, but I don't think like something just being macabre makes it horror.
I don't think so either, but I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Funny thing is, it was your idea to do this one.
Yeah, because it's a great movie.
It is a great movie. So, other interesting cast of note. We've got Richard Roundtree, Shaft himself, as Martin Talbot, the district attorney. We've got Arlie Ermey, the quintessential drill sergeant.
Yeah, he's always a drill sergeant.
As the police captain, a grizzled veteran who is trying to convince Somerset not to leave the police department. We've got John C. McGinley, one of the Bobs, and the one doctor from Scrubs as California, the leader of the SWAT team.
No. Oh, yeah, you're right. He is one of the Bobs.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, it's one of the Bobs from Office Space.
Yeah.
Also, fucking great movie. Definitely not one we're talking about on here.
What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, because I was thinking of the other one. Then I'm like, oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah, Office Space. God, I fucking love that movie so much. I have the soundtrack on vinyl.
That's funny.
It's so good. Even though we just discussed that neither of us like the whole setting as a character trope, Los Angeles as the unnamed city, a grim, grimy, hostile place with rampant crime and corruption. It is Los Angeles. They filmed it in Los Angeles.
Yeah, but it's not supposed to be like any specific city.
No, but you know, I'm reading the cast. It's the actor and then their character.
I think it's more supposed to be like the Los Angeles isn't in reality like this city and how it's like big and seems claustrophobic. Los Angeles is very spread out.
No, I think
it's supposed to be more like New York or Chicago.
It's not supposed to take place in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is just where they filmed it.
Yeah, but they filmed it in a way that it does not look like Los Angeles at all.
Right. Well, they didn't want it to be a real city that you would recognize.
No, I know that.
Initially, I actually thought it was New York. When they go upstate and it's clearly Southern California, I'm like, wait a minute, what the fuck is this?
Well, even the way because they say upstate, it makes it seem like it's New York. Because in New York, that's how they always talk about anything that's not the city is upstate.
Yeah, but as far as I know, once you get out of New York City and you go upstate, it's all, it's New England. It's trees and stuff.
No. Have you been to New York?
Not the city. No. I know you have, but have you gone upstate New
Yes,
York? What's
because
in
my
upstate New
family
York?
lives there.
All right, well, what's upstate like?
It looks a lot like California in some ways, but they have different trees and stuff.
Right. But do you
It's
have...
not like a forest. It's not like dense.
But do you have that like flat grassland
Yes.
with all the hills in the background and all
Not
that?
as many hills.
Like, does the ending scene look like it takes place in upstate New York?
No, but
See, that's what I'm talking about.
no, it doesn't. But the way you're describing it's like
Yeah, no. The upstate in this movie clearly looks like Southern California.
Sure. Yes.
Or even that one area on the way to the North Bay from here, like on the way to wine country. Never mind. I used to do a lot of driving around that area. So nobody is happy here, and it almost never stops fucking raining, apparently, which is another way that you know it's not fucking California.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like one scene, I forget exactly which scene it is, but they're driving somewhere and it's raining really hard and they're like arguing about something. And on Somerset side where it's driving, it's just clearly like, I'm sure it's a rain mechanism above the car, but on Brad Pitt's side or Mill's side, it actually kind of looks like rain. And then on Somerset's side, it looks like they're just blasting a hose at the windshield. And I notice it every time I watch this movie, and it just makes me laugh.
A lot of the car scenes are really interesting because, like, there is kind of that element of one side just looks like they're being blasted with a hose. And there's one scene when they're on their way to Victor's apartment where it is so dark and dreary on Somerset's side, but then Brad Pitt, his side still has the pouring rain, but there's a really bright sun like right behind him. And I know that they did this on purpose because it's
Well, that also does happen sometimes.
It does, but this was also clearly meant to go with what was happening with his character at the moment, because it's when he's thinking about the one raid that he was in where, God damn it, he just got into the hall closet.
Oh.
He has gotten very good at opening that door. Even when we have it properly latched, he's able to get in.
Yeah, because you have these handles.
Not on that closet door. Yeah, no, he sticks his paws underneath and he lifts it and pushes it, and so the door like unlatches and then just sort of swings open.
Yeah.
It's very funny. Too smart, that cat. So the film begins with Somerset getting dressed and ready for work. He has a very clean house where, with everything he keeps on him neatly laid out, his clothing meticulously organized, and even the way he picks up each of the individual items that he's taking with him seems very precise and methodical. Normally I wouldn't get into this level of granular detail, but this is actually a pretty good display of who his character is.
Sure.
However, through this whole scene, we do hear sirens wailing, people yelling in other apartments, just generally noises of misery. So even though he has his nice, neat little world that he's set up in here, he cannot escape the city even at home. While investigating a murder, Somerset is approached by Mills, and they begin their entire relationship butting heads and generally not liking each other. And we can immediately see that they are diametrically opposed in just about every way. Somerset wants to get to know his new partner and relay some wisdom at a bar. Mills just wants to get right to the police station and dive in, and also takes a pretty solid verbal swipe at Somerset for, quote, quitting. From here, we move into this really awesome title sequence, which has a very 90s music video feel to it. This is sort of the famous title sequence that sort of shows life from the perspective of the killer.
It shows like John Doe making all those notebooks.
Yeah,
But they make it seem like he sews them together, and they're clearly just those like black and white speckled books that you used in school and stuff.
I think he was sewing something else, because he does attach stuff to the inside of the pages. But I was actually thinking that maybe he's sewing up part of that like severed hand or something. It may not be the notebook.
It was pages.
Was it pages?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it shows him assembling his notebooks, cutting out pieces of film and newspaper clippings, making tea, which they somehow somehow managed to film in a way that still makes it look really grimy and gross. And
it's got the Further Down the Spiral playing.
Not Further Down the Spiral. It is Closer, the Precursor remix by Coyle and Danny Hyde, which was not on Further Down the Spiral.
I thought it was.
No, it's on a Closer to God single, which is basically just the Closer single, but it's got like 5 remixes of Closer to God, which is, I don't know what you would call that, because it's not a remix. It's a different song, but it involves a lot of the same lyrics and has a very, very different feel to it. I always really wish that I could see them play that one live. It is a fucking cool song, but that's not the one that's in here. It's Closer, the Precursor remix. Yeah, I remember everybody making a really big deal out of this title sequence when the movie came out. There's a lot about this movie that is really revolutionary and a lot of things that had never really been done before.
Well, Fincher after this becomes really known for his title screens because probably of his music video background.
Yeah.
But I remember Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Everyone talked about the title sequence.
That title sequence is amazing as well.
I'm pretty sure Fight Club too, but I don't remember the title sequence of Fight Club.
Yeah, Fight Club has a really great title sequence. It's a little different. It's basically the camera running through a bunch of wires through the walls and sort of going through the narrator's like apartment, kind of.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time either.
It's also a really, really good one.
It is, but the internet has kind of soured that movie for me.
Man, that movie sits right up there with American Psycho as like one of the ones where everybody just misses the fucking point. And honestly, deliberately so. Yeah. It's not that fucking complicated, guys. Yeah. You know, we don't need to twist every fucking great movie to fit.
Falling Down.
Yeah. Falling Down, Taxi Driver. Yeah. You know, it's why Katie and I didn't see Joker for so long, is because I was just like, this is just going to be another Taxi Driver, another Falling Down.
I haven't seen it.
It's going to have a point to it, but nobody's going to fucking get it.
There's a movie called like The Greatest Comedian, and I've heard it's basically a remake of that. They're like, it's almost exactly the same.
Yeah. I haven't seen that either. Who was in that one?
Dustin Hoffman?
Was it Dustin Hoffman?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen it.
I was thinking maybe, for some reason...
I didn't think Joker was as good as people said it was. It was fine. But everyone just talked like, you know, people on the internet went crazy for that movie. And I was like, it was fine.
You know why? Because it's this generation's fucking Falling Down.
I guess.
And everybody went nuts for Falling Down too. And again, everybody just got the wrong fucking lessons from it.
Even though, isn't like the last line in that movie, like, am I the bad guy?
It's not the last line, but yeah, like the big fucking pivotal moment of that movie, the camera zooms in on his fucking face and he goes, wait a minute, I'm the bad guy?
Yeah.
I'm the bad guy. And like he has this revelation that he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
And somehow everybody just ignores it.
It's like, man, the world's got the man down.
I mean, yeah, the world sucks, but that doesn't mean that you have to try to get one up on it and just become a fucking terrorist.
Yeah.
Speaking of the world sucking, Monday, the detectives investigate a gruesome crime scene of a very obese man who has been bound up and force-fed spaghetti as well as his own puke until his stomach burst. Once again, the detectives are butting heads on this. Somerset thinks this case is too extreme to be his last and also too extreme to be Mills's first, and the captain reassigns Mills.
Well, also, Mills is like, he's not convinced it's a homicide, even though the guy's fucking tied up. He is like, are you sure this is his homicide?
But that was before he saw the ties.
Yeah, but then...
Because I noted that, too, the first time I watched it.
Yeah, but then it's not until they do the fucking autopsy that he's like, ladies and gentlemen, we've got ourselves a homicide. It's like, how did you not... What...
So I didn't interpret that as this being the first moment where he like realizes it's a homicide. I interpreted that as this being the moment where he thinks he can say something cool and like,
I don't know,
and you know, play sort of cowboy detective for a moment. It's why the other guys give him that look of like, what are you doing? You know? But yeah, the captain reassigns Mills, which Mills doesn't. The captain does exactly the opposite of what everybody here wants.
Well, Somerset also doesn't want it to be his last because it's too extreme. extreme. He's just like, this is the beginning of something. He instantly is like, this is the beginning of something.
Yeah.
And I can't get like caught up in this because I'm leaving in 6 days.
Right. But he also thinks it's too extreme for Mills.
Yeah.
And Mills is like, fuck him. I'll take the case.
Yeah.
And the captain does exactly what neither of them wants. He keeps Somerset on the case, but reassigns Mills. So Somerset is stuck with it.
Yeah.
Poor Mills. Just such a dickhead. Doesn't even realize it. And he's really trying
If
to
he shut up just a little bit.
Yeah. He would have been so much more agreeable to everyone in this movie if he just knew how to be a little less impulsive, keep his mouth shut. But I mean, that's kind of the whole point of his character.
Yeah.
Is he's temperamental and
He did
impulsive
try to
and doesn't know when
bring
to shut up.
Somerset coffee.
I know, and Somerset's so rude about it.
He just ignores it.
Yeah.
I'm like, see, he was trying to smooth things over a little bit.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I meant to mention this. During the introduction crime scene where we first meet the detectives, one of the police officers is like, man, Somerset, it's going to be so nice when you're gone.
Yeah.
You know? And he just talking about how everybody hates working with Somerset because he's always asking
Too many questions.
And, and what was the question that really set him off? Did the kids see the murder happen?
Yes. And he's like, what the fuck does that matter?
I don't know. It seems like it matters a bit,
Also would be a witness.
Be a witness. Also, maybe, I understand why a beat cop might not care, but that's kind of the thing detectives are supposed to do is ask all the questions they need to ask, which means asking more questions than you need because you got to cover your bases, right?
Yeah.
So you would think that Mills would possibly be more their speed since he's butting heads with Somerset, but the first thing he does is come in here and criticize them.
Yeah.
So he doesn't endear himself to the cops there either. So Tuesday, Mills is investigating the high-profile murder of a wealthy and successful defense attorney at his office. He has been forced to use a butcher's knife to cut off a pound of his own flesh, causing him to bleed out, with the killer writing greed on the floor in his blood. In the meantime, the captain tries unsuccessfully to convince Somerset to stay on before delivering some scraps of plastic that were force-fed to the obese victim. This leads Somerset back to the crime scene where he finds the word glue.
I was going to say, this is another funny thing in the movie. So he cuts the sticker that's on the door, just keep the door shut, saying that it's a crime scene. The sticker is on the inside of the house or the apartment. How did they put it on there and then get out of the house?
And back door?
It's like an apartment. It doesn't seem like it. Maybe there is.
No, I think this was actually a house.
It's maybe like a townhouse type thing. I still don't think there's a back door.
I'll tell you.
And wouldn't it be on both of them? It's like, why would you have it? But it's just a small thing again that I just noticed when he's cutting it. I'm like, wait a minute, the sticker's on the inside. Shouldn't it be on the outside?
That's funny. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Now every time I watch this movie, I'm going to notice that. And I'm going to be like, God damn it,
How did they get out? Yeah, Craven was like, maybe they went through the window.
There is something funny about us doing this podcast because I have had this whole thing with Katie where I'm like, don't tell me how they do this stuff. I actually like the movie magic, right?
Yeah.
And this kind of started, like I used to think it was interesting how things are done behind the scenes, and I still do.
Stuff.
But what really killed it for me was the documentaries on the Lord of the Rings DVDs, because one, they have this whole thing about the fucking Wilhelm scream, and now every time I hear it,
Is that the first time you knew about that?
Yeah.
That's so weird.
I mean, this was 1999. Like,
I knew about it. And I recognized it all the time.
Yeah. Well, I didn't, and now it's annoying whenever I hear it. Even the movie itself is like, every time I see Aragorn kick that helmet in rage, all I think is, Viggo Mortensen broke his foot when he did that, and that's why he's yelling so much. And I realize that all of these behind the scenes things really take me out of the movie.
Sure. Yeah, there's an Empire Strikes Back that like the stormtrooper hits his head on the doorway. Yeah. I never noticed it until I saw it on the internet all the time. Never noticed. And then what? It was like the recut. They added a bonk. It was like, that was unnecessary.
Yeah. In the meantime, the captain tries unsuccessfully to convince Somerset to stay on before delivering some scraps of plastic that were force-fed to the obese victim, leading him back to the crime scene where he finds the word gluttony written on the wall behind the refrigerator. There's also a little note written with that. Somerset recognizes the 7 deadly sins connection between these two cases, realizes that this is a serial killer. And whether he likes it or not, he and Mills are back together, even though neither of them are ready to admit it just yet. And they both spend that night working on the case in their own different way. Kind of a nice scene with Somerset in the library.
Yeah. Though it is weird. Like, there's like 6 security guards.
And they're all just playing poker.
But it's like, how many security guards do you need?
6.
Apparently.
I also like how they, one of them just has some like really nice classical music queued up and ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
I'm guessing that is for Somerset more than for them.
That's what but he's like, how's this for culture?
Yeah. In the meantime, Mills is just poring over the files and the photos. And
When does he sleep? We don't know. I'm just saying there's a lot of times in this movie where it's like, does this dude ever sleep?
Don't we see him? We see him wake up with his wife once.
He doesn't have a wife.
Oh, you're talking about Somerset.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were referring to Mills.
No.
Yeah, no. We see Somerset sleep. We see him with the he has the metronome that helps him sleep.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, them, because even there's a scene where Mills goes back to his wife and it's like, what time is this between like all the other shit you've been doing?
This is one of those movies where movie magic time is very much in play.
It doesn't matter.
Because there is entirely too much that goes on in this movie to be able to take place in a week.
Yeah.
Wednesday, Mills is moving into his new office, aka Somerset's old office, which they are sharing for the rest of the week. And much to both of their chagrin, Tracy invites Somerset over to the Mills home for dinner.
She calls them.
Very much irritates the shit out of Mills and is very funny. This movie actually does have a lot of funny little moments in it. I think that Fincher did a really good job of balancing just sort of the right amount of comic relief into what is otherwise an extremely grim movie.
Well, it's like the relationships are realistic.
The relationships are realistic. The progression of, I think I actually have a note in here about dinner being sort of a masterclass of character progression and growth. Because the dinner scene is honestly probably my favorite scene in the movie, just because of the way it moves these characters into different directions in a really brilliant way. So, getting slightly ahead of ourselves there, Tracy has invited Somerset over to Mills's house for dinner. She is clearly very lonely and unhappy, but works on breaking down the walls between the two detectives.
I think she also did it on purpose because she probably heard Mills talking about like how shitty their relationship was and was like, gotta get these guys to actually have a conversation.
Oh, I 100%. It is very clear to me, or I thought it was very clear that she was deliberately trying to get them on the same page.
That's why she asks his name. That's like the first thing. And then it's like, William, meet David.
Yeah. So she's working on breaking down the walls between the detectives, and she's doing a pretty good job. And then a passing train shakes their entire apartment, at which point Somerset cannot help but make a joke with him and Tracy bursting out laughing, which finally really breaks the ice between him and Mills.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, this is such a great scene in the way it moves these characters, all of them forward, and really changes the relationship dynamics, and also shows how important Tracy is to this movie, even if she doesn't have the most screen time.
Yeah. I also love like they go, so after the dinner, they go to like look over their notes and like research shit together.
I think I know what you're about to talk about. And I have it in my notes.
Okay. And he's like, do you want a beer? And he's like, wine, please. And then he goes in the other room and gets like a water glass and just fills the whole thing.
It's like a pint of wine.
Yeah. But then it's also funny because he doesn't notice right away.
Yeah.
He just takes it in his hand, and then I forget there's like some pause.
A train is coming by and he picks up the glass to keep it from spilling.
And then he looks at it and is like, what the fuck? But he just didn't notice because he was like focused on what he was doing.
Yeah. And it is so clearly the difference between them. Like Mills pours him a pint of wine like an idiot. I mean, who does that? Mills, apparently.
20-year-olds.
Yeah, I know, right? It's very funny. So subtle too, the way they do it, and I think that makes it even funnier.
Yeah,
it's just Somerset being like, "What?"
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, all these little things make them very seem like real people.
Yeah, the characterization in this is great. The detail that goes into every character is so well done. As we both said, this movie's a goddamn masterpiece. Just one of the best movies I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's like a good example of a show don't tell.
Yeah. Finally, on the same page for the first time, we see that they're actually a pretty good team as they dive into the work and figure out that they need to question the lawyer's wife, which they do, greatly upsetting her, but she does point out that there is an upside-down painting in the office leading them to a set of fingerprints spelling out the words, "Help me." Thursday. This is also a funny thing as they are starting to do their whole, not exactly bickering, but kind of like on the edge of bickering. And the fingerprint guy is like, would you guys go away?
Yeah.
And so they fall asleep. They sit down in the hallway, and then we cut to Thursday morning, and Mills is like resting is like asleep with his head on Somerset's shoulder.
Yeah.
And it's very cute and funny.
Well, also when he wakes up and realizes he's like, ugh.
The fingerprints lead them to Sloth, a drug-dealing junkie pederast. When they enter his apartment with the SWAT team, they find him strapped to the bed, missing an arm, barely alive, and so pale and emaciated as to barely be recognizable as a human. And in fact, I'm pretty sure this was a puppet.
Oh, I mean, it has to be, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's no way you could do this to somebody with makeup, right?
Yeah. Also, this was hugely talked about when it was in the theater because it's the one, like, jump scare. Mm-hmm. It's like, because everyone thinks he's dead. The guy's all up close to his face, and then he's like, bleh! And when this was in theaters, I heard so many people talk about, like, oh, there's one scene, but they didn't want to, like, spoil it. Mm-hmm. But it was, like, a big thing people talked about.
Yeah. Finding some photographs documenting his torture, they see that he has been tied to the bed for exactly 1 year to this day. And although he lives, he is in a vegetative state, with the forensics guy describing his brain as mush. And this is probably the most horrifying part of the movie, honestly. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, they don't actually show the lust victim, because that would definitely be the most horrifying part. But this is pretty disturbing. Even as desensitized as we are, there is still a part of me that's just like, Jesus Christ. This scene is also really funny. So this scene goes from mildly funny to horrifying pretty quick. There is this great moment as they're getting ready to go in, and the SWAT team is grabbing their battering ram and all that. Or Somerset just leans over to Mills and goes, they love this, because they're being all like ridiculously, we're men, we're gonna charge in.
They also somehow think he's the killer, which I'm like, I think it would be obvious he's not, but I guess they just have to approach it that way.
Well, as they are leaving, Somerset does.
No, I know Somerset does, but
Somerset and Mills.
I'm just saying these SWAT guys.
Yeah, the SWAT. Well, I mean, I think the whole point of this scene is that they're the meatheads of the police department.
Sure.
Like, they're all gung-ho to go do this. Somerset's like, they love this.
Yeah.
You know? Meanwhile, Somerset and Mills are just like, yeah, this isn't our guy.
Yeah.
But of course, they're here because they gotta be. He's part of it one way or the other.
Sure.
I had a pretty good chuckle at that when Somerset was like, yeah, they love this.
Yeah.
Then we get to Friday. Tracy meets privately with Somerset because she needs to talk to somebody, and he's literally the only person that she knows in the city. She tells him that she is pregnant, but isn't sure that she wants to raise a child in this hellhole. He tells her a story about him pressuring a former partner into getting an abortion for much the same reasons that she is considering it. And he advises her that if she decides to abort the pregnancy, she should never tell Mills about it.
Because he thinks about it every day. He says he doesn't regret it, but he thinks about it every day.
Yeah, which I think means he does regret it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you don't like regret it, then you wouldn't think about it.
Yeah. Well, no, he doesn't say. Okay, so he doesn't. This actually did resonate with me because he doesn't say he doesn't regret it. What he says is, I know that I made the right decision.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get into this here, but there is something in my life where, yeah, I know I made the right decision, but it does haunt me like every day. Mm-hmm. And it sucks to be in a position where like you have to do something that is going to haunt you like that.
Sure.
I think you know what I'm talking about, but we're not going to get into it here. The detectives meet on the down low with an FBI contact that Somerset knows, who supplies them with illegally obtained library records, leading them to John Doe's apartment. John Doe unexpectedly returns while they are knocking on the door and opens fire on them, resulting in a pretty intense chase sequence. Ultimately, Doe clocks Mills with a tire iron and escapes.
It's a good scene.
It is a good scene.
Yeah.
It is a
high action chase through an apartment building.
Kind of like the one action moment
in
the whole thing. Anyway, so now Mills's head is busted, and he is really pissed, so he kicks in John Doe's door, infuriating Somerset since they're here based on illegally obtained information. But Mills takes the rest of the money they paid for that information and pays a homeless lady to tell the police officers that she called Somerset due to John Doe's suspicious behavior.
Also funny.
Yes, this is a very funny.
Because she starts being like, yeah, there was a body over there.
One of them happened right over there. And he's just like, all right. We're done. We're done. You got that? All right, go.
Go eat. Make sure you eat something. And even the cop, too, that's taking the report is just like,
He clearly knows this is bullshit, but he just doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Just like, you know what? Whatever, man. So investigating John Doe's apartment, they find memorabilia from the crime scenes that they know about, extensive religious paraphernalia, thousands of journals.
It's got like a fucking neon cross.
That neon red cross.
It's like above his like bed. That's like one that you would see like in an orphanage in a movie. It's like kind of the wire like frame and just shitty.
It's so weird. It is hard to imagine what kind of religious nutbag would have a neon sign cross.
Yeah.
There's something so sleazy about that. Yeah. That's something that I would put... If I were making a nun-themed porn...
I think there's one in Lords of Salem.
There is one in Lords of Salem. But I think that's what Rob Zombie is going for.
Exactly.
You know? So this is weirdly out of place. Yeah. And yet
it's
kind
really
of
quick.
just fits with the grunginess of everything.
It's just to be like the aesthetic in this place.
Yeah. And they find thousands of journals with John Doe's stream of consciousness writing. And disturbingly, they find photos of Mills taken under the guise of a press photographer. The photographs are an interesting piece of foreshadowing that I don't think anybody actually caught at the time.
What do you mean?
Well, this should be a really obvious sign that Mills is going to be one of the victims. Because these photographs are in here, and the only other photographs are of victims.
Yeah, okay.
I've never heard anybody mention this, and the ending of this movie was such a fucking shocker to everybody that, like, it's pretty clear nobody caught this.
I still, to this day, often reference what's in the box.
Everybody does. And I've got some things to say about that, and we'll get there. Yeah. Saturday, after visiting a custom kink shop listed on a receipt found in John Doe's apartment, they are called in to investigate lust, a particularly brutal crime where John Doe forced a John to wear a giant bladed strap-on, which was made at the kink shop, and use it to fuck
There's also a funny moment there, because the guy who made it shows him a Polaroid.
Oh, yeah, they take the picture.
And then when they have to go, he's like, hey, give me my Polaroid.
Give me my picture back.
Yeah, and he's like, God damn it.
Yeah, they walk out and he's just like, fucking pigs.
Yeah.
The little bits of humor are so good and very necessary to this movie, I think. But yeah, so he has forced a John to wear a giant bladed strap-on and use it to fuck a prostitute to death at gunpoint. Interestingly, this is also the one death that doesn't lead them anywhere.
Well, because he had to change all his plans.
Yes.
He had a setup and he had to change it because they found him.
Yeah.
They get the phone call in the apartment and he's like, I don't know how you found me, but that means I'm just gonna have to speed things up.
Or adjust the schedule.
Yeah.
So afterwards, they do finally go to a bar and they discuss their views on the world around them and their attitudes towards it, with Mills refusing to accept Somerset's pessimistic view towards the state of the city and the world. And this seems to get to Somerset, who decides that he wants to see the case through till the end. There's a scene right after this that is clearly stating a change in Somerset's character, but I've never been able to understand like how. And it's the scene where he goes to bed, and throughout the movie, we've seen him go to bed a couple times, and he has this metronome that he uses to help him sleep. And for whatever reason, he grabs the metronome and throws it across the room, and it shatters. And I know that's supposed to be like a pivot moment for his character, but I've never been able to figure out the symbolism to it. Do you have any idea?
I mean, I don't know.
David Fincher, if you ever hear this.
Just like, I mean, the ticking is something that's just like keeping it in like a beat. Like he has a very like specific way that he does everything.
Yeah.
And so for...
maybe he's realizing that he needs to abandon his rigidity.
Yeah. Or maybe like he wasted his life because he's always stuck to that.
Maybe. Either way, it's clear that somehow Mills has actually gone through to him a little bit and changed his way of viewing things just a little bit. And finally, we get to Sunday. A phone call from John Doe leads the detectives to Pride, a beautiful woman who has had her nose cut off and has been given the choice between living with a mutilated face or taking a bunch of sleeping pills to die.
I think this one's actually more prevalent today for how much plastic surgery is on the rise more than ever, or fillers and
Is it?
Botox and well,
I mean, I know Botox is like a weirdly big thing.
all the girls, like 20-year-olds getting their lips filled and like, because of like Instagram and stuff.
I guess
people are
make sense.
way more obsessed with looking a certain way, which honestly makes everyone kind of look the same, which I don't like. I mean, I don't like that kind of stuff anyways, but.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Jessica thinks everybody is ugly now. That was a joke.
I hate lip fillers. I think it looks bad. I think even mildly, I think you look like you got stung by a bee. Like, it's obvious your lips aren't like that. But,
kind of looks like you're doing Instagram duck face all the time.
Yes. But then also, like, there's all these reality shows where they'll, like, show, like, a girl and then be like, they're 23 and they look like fucking 40. And it's because they're getting these Botox and fillers that are meant for people that are, like, 45 to 50 to make them look younger. But even they end up making you look bizarre because you're basically, like, Botox is paralyzing your face.
Yeah.
But my point is they're doing this because people are just like fucking obsessed with looking like a certain way. And I do think it's a problem. And it's more, that's why I say this is more relevant today than it was at the time. It's like, if I can't be pretty, I'd rather fucking be dead.
I might well cut this section out because I really don't want us to get like into politics and shit. Over the past few months, there was this whole thing with Trump hanging around with this Laura Loomer chick, and she looked fairly normal, pretty attractive, all that stuff. And then out of nowhere, she seemed to get like a buttload of plastic surgery, and now her face looks like a purge mask. Yeah. Like literally.
Well, even like Melania, when she was shown recently, unrecognizable.
Yeah.
She looks totally fucking different than she did during the last.
Just really weird. I don't understand. There is some plastic surgery that I do get, like, all right, you need to do repairs, or you're transgender, or your livelihood depends on your looks, so you try to look a little bit younger. All right, fine. But like, just going to this point where your face like literally looks like a mask.
Yeah.
Why? At what point do you look at, how do you look at that in the mirror and be like, yeah, this was a good decision?
No, there is studies to show that there is a point where like you literally, it's a type of body dysmorphia that you don't see the reality that other people see.
Yeah.
Even with the lip fillers, girls that get bigger and bigger, they're like, yeah, they literally do not see how they really look.
It's weird the way our brains, how we do not see in the mirror what other people see.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much it applies to everybody.
Yeah.
Creepy shit. Anyway, so she chose the pills. As they arrive back at the police station, John Doe, covered in blood, walks in, surrenders, and asks for his lawyer. The lawyer informs the police that John Doe will give a full confession, but only if Somerset and Mills agree to escort him alone at a specific time today to a specific location outside of the city where 2 more bodies are located. They decide to go with this. After this, there's another scene that I really like. It's just Somerset and Mills getting ready, and they're shaving their chests and putting on a wire. And what I like about this is
Brad Pitt asking if he shaves off his nipple if he gets workers' comp. Yes,
but more the implication behind that. This is kind of the first time that we actually see them behaving as friends.
Yeah.
So they, we've seen them work towards getting on the same page with a lot of help from Tracy. We've seen them become partners. We've seen them become good partners, and now we're seeing them become friends.
Yep.
Which really makes everything else that happens here all the more tragic.
Right.
So they travel to this remote location upstate, followed by a helicopter, and everything changes here as they sort of move to the final circle of hell, which is not as clearly literal as what we were discussing in As Above, So Below.
Sure.
But that is essentially what this movie has been.
Yeah.
Is a large reference to Dante's Inferno. Although in this movie, they talk more about Dante's Purgatory, which recently I had never read. Recently, I watched a bunch of videos on it because before we even watched this, it was our last conversation when we were recording the As Above, So Below thing, that I was like, I've read Inferno. Everybody's read Inferno. But I haven't read either of the other two books, and I'm not about to sit down and read them because I already have like too many books that I haven't even gotten to yet.
Sure.
But I'm gonna watch some YouTube videos on them. I'm gonna Detective Mills it and get the Cliff Notes.
That's what YouTube's for.
That is. And Purgatory in particular seems like it actually might be more interesting in a lot of ways. But yeah, everything here changes as they move into the final circle of hell. There's no more rain. The area upstate is dry and dusty with no life anywhere, nobody and nothing around for miles. The only signs of any life are a burnt out trailer, a bunch of high tension power lines, and a dead dog.
I didn't do that.
Another great moment of humor. What do you got? Dead dog. I didn't do that.
It is a John Doe sense.
John Doe. Fucking Kevin Spacey, you fucking psycho. After arriving at their destination, a delivery van starts coming down the road, and Somerset goes to investigate, leaving Mills to hold John Doe at gunpoint. He stops the van and sends the driver away.
The poor delivery driver, man. He's just, doing what he's paid to do.
Yeah, and
all of a sudden gets a gun pulled on him.
I know, and then is like just sent to run away.
And you're in the middle of fucking
nowhere. And Somerset didn't say, we'll have somebody pick you up.
No.
He tells the helicopter, hey, send somebody to get this guy.
Yeah.
But as far as he knows, he's running back to the city.
Where's the closest car?
Well, I mean, it was the one he was standing next to.
Well, that's what I mean. Like the closest cop car.
Oh,
like
the closest cop car.
Like, how long is this guy going to be? It's like running down, being like, fuck. And this is before most people had cell phones. Like,
well, and the helicopter's not going to go pick him up because they're focused on what's going on.
Yeah.
And as they say, the power lines make it impossible for them to set down anywhere nearby.
That guy's just running for hours.
They're going to find him collapsed on the side of the road.
He's the 8th victim that is unmentioned.
Yeah. They apply one of the alternate sins to him.
Yeah.
This is the most well-known, but there's a couple variants. Sort of like the Four Horsemen. There's variants on that, which I always thought was weird. Yeah, religious mythology and symbolism.
Well, it's because you're talking about dead languages and people just like guessing in some ways. Translating dead languages in a way is making assumptions.
Yeah. Let's see, what were the Four Horsemen? War, pestilence, conquest, and death. But I think conquest often gets swapped out with famine.
Yeah, because war and conquest are kind of the same thing.
They are kind of the same thing. It's a whole weird thing.
And all these things lead to death.
Right, which is, I think death is supposed to be the leader of them.
Sure.
But yeah. So the delivery driver sets down the box, and Somerset has this moment where he looks at the box, and for the first time, we see him really anxious and not knowing what to do. And it's pretty clear that as soon as he sees the box, he knows that they've lost.
Sure. They knew they were being set up from the beginning, but they're like, what else choice do we have, basically? Yeah,
but I think this is he realizes that whatever's in this box is going to completely change everything. They did not expect this, and John Doe has probably got them beat.
Yeah.
So he opens the box and then starts running back towards Mills, yelling at him to put down the gun.
And to not listen to him. Don't listen to him.
He also tells...
John Doe's got the upper hand.
He also tells the helicopter to stay away no matter what they hear.
Yeah.
And to not listen to them.
Yeah.
Which, things have gone wrong when you're telling your backup, stay away and don't listen.
Yeah. And that means you're definitely listening.
Yeah. While Somerset is running towards them, John Doe tells Mills that he envy Mills's normal life and that he tried to live part of that life. And when it didn't work, he killed Tracy and took her head. Somerset tries to talk Mills down as Mills is processing this and demands to know what's in the box before realizing finally that John Doe is telling the truth. And then John Doe says that Tracy begged for her life and the life of her unborn child, and laughs when he realizes from the look on Mills's face that Mills did not know she was pregnant.
And he somehow knows that Somerset knows. Because the way he looks at him and then goes, he didn't know, is like, we knew. He knows all about these people.
He does know all about them.
Yeah. Because that's the mysterious part is like this movie. It's like, clearly this has to be some rich person.
Well, they say he's independently wealthy.
Yeah, but how?
Well, he's independently wealthy. That's code for we don't need to tell you.
Sure. But I'm like, because he was paying for at least 2 rents.
Yeah. Okay, so just trying to think back on this scene, I think that he's able to tell. Oh, no. The reason he knows that Somerset knows is because the moment he says it, Somerset hits him. And so it's clear that he doesn't want him saying this. And that also, I think, tips Mills off. And Mills realizes that Somerset knows.
Yeah.
Because that's when he starts really asking, is it true?
Yeah.
This is when John Doe reveals that he is envy and that Mills is wrath, which Mills fulfills by unloading his gun into John Doe as Somerset helplessly turns away. As Mills is taken away to an unknown fate, Somerset and the captain agree that they will do everything they possibly can to help him. When asked where he will be, Somerset says he'll be around. In a voiceover, as they walk away, Somerset says that Hemingway once wrote the world is a fine place and worth fighting for, and that he agrees with the second part, which between this and what he says to the captain about being around, and the fact that he told Mills that he was going to stay on to the end of this case, we can basically surmise that he has actually decided not to retire and is going to keep trying to fight the good fight.
Sure.
Man, this fucking movie. Okay, so before we get into the general movie, I have never been able to understand the whole what's in the box thing. Like, why everybody treats it as so funny. When I watch this movie, even now for like what's got to be the 15th time, this whole scene is so fucking gut-wrenching and so heartbreaking, and I don't think it's like overacted or anything.
No, it's not.
You would be flipping the fuck out.
Yeah.
You know? So I've never been understand how that line has become such a like meme or
such a memorable line, and he says it a bunch of times.
Yeah, but what? There's nothing funny about it, and people always say it in a joking way, and it always seems like they're making fun of it. You know, what's in the bag? I mean, Katie fucking says it all the time.
Yeah, me and Craven do too. What's in the box? Anytime a box is mentioned, basically.
Yeah, see, everybody's joking about it when it comes up, and I've just never understood it because to
like,
me, this
almost 30 years later.
I know, and just to me, this scene has always been so brutal and gut wrenching, and I never think it's funny when he's actually saying it. You know, the worst part is...
It's just everyone knows what you're referencing when you say it.
Yeah. Well, and the worst part is like, as we discussed privately, there's not really any good screams in this movie. And so probably what's in the box is going to be what gets inserted into the intro song for this episode. Because it's literally the closest thing to a scream there is.
No, I think the guy that for lust that fucked the prostitute, him going, oh God, probably is. Because he's like freaking out.
Okay. I'll pull up both scenes and figure out which one's better. I don't know. Do you have a preference?
I mean, what's in the box is more, like you said, iconic, as people will say.
It is iconic. I don't necessarily think the right way or for the right reasons, but that is fine. That is fine. Everybody can joke about this serious
people who haven't even
scene.
seen this movie know that reference.
I know.
They don't even know what's in the box.
One thing that I realized watching this movie this time around for the first time is that even though the detectives do completely lose to John Doe, and it is one of the bleakest endings to a movie like ever, there is actually a small victory that they do achieve at the end. Not over John Doe, obviously, but actually over the city itself, which is very much this looming figure in the movie. Because this city pits everybody against each other. And, you know, Somerset and Mills slowly learn to get along and work together as the film goes on, but nobody has friends. Tracy's lonely. Somerset is disillusioned. Mills has no time for anyone's bullshit. The cops don't like each other. Nobody likes
those security
anybody.
Guards.
The security guards. All right. That is a good point.
They were having a great old time.
But you know
they didn't
what?
give a shit about nothing.
They're also isolated in the only civilized part of the goddamn city,
I'm just
the
saying,
library.
They didn't get. There also seems to be one guy that's not a security guard. He's just in regular clothes that's there.
Yeah. But the small victory that they do have here is that when Somerset and Mills are doing that whole shaving scene, they have become friends.
Yeah.
And this is like the one thing the city does not allow.
Trauma bonding.
Is it trauma bonding, or if they just sort of learned to get along and sort of found a commonality over the police work, or both?
Yeah.
But yeah, they do form a friendship. And in that one way, there is a small victory over the city. And it is a very, very thin silver lining, but it is a silver lining.
Yeah.
And I think I noticed this before, but it's just not something that I think about when I think about this movie, is that there's such a theme about tabloid culture and this weird underlying thing of, I don't want to say celebrity worship because there's never anything really brought up about that, but that is sort of what's behind John Doe's whole strategy here.
Yeah.
I did notice, and I'll put a picture up of on social media, there's one scene when Mills is about to investigate greed that we do see a bunch of newspapers that are talking about how some big lawyer has been murdered uptown. But I noticed this time, none of them are legit newspapers. They're all tabloids. Oh. And I snapped a picture of it and I'll put that on Instagram and all that. But it is interesting. It's also, funny reading the other headlines because they're all sort of stereotypical movie tabloid headlines.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That is, again, much like you were mentioning with the plastic surgery thing, that is something that has definitely only got more relevant as time has gone on.
Yeah.
And it's just weirdly infested all of our lives at this point. And it's also sort of shown by John Doe's statement about needing a sledgehammer to get people's attention, and Mills's response that John Doe is just a movie of the week, a t-shirt at best. Yeah. Which is a really good insult in a lot of ways. Yeah. For what John Doe is trying to do, that is a great insult.
You see he gets pissed then too.
Yeah. This is like the one moment of emotion that John Doe has.
Yeah.
Fucking Mills did get in his fucking craw at that moment. There does also seem to be a theme of class and classism in the way a lot of the murders play out. The obese man lives in a shithole. Yeah. He's obviously impoverished. No, not only does nobody give a shit about him, but everybody in this movie basically insults him.
They all call him disgusting and a fat man and, how do you even fit through the door?
Yeah, looks like you're stuck cleaning up, fat boy. Yeah. But then the big rich lawyer dies and we're introduced with like the press swarming the DA for a statement and him promising that this will be swift justice, and everybody cares and is upset that this absolute piece of shit scumbag
because he was known for doing like...
He was known for getting bad people actually off. Yeah. But this is apparently an important thing, and the poor fat guy is not. Yeah. And as a fat guy, I just want to say, fuck you guys. Not really related to the movie. I mean, kind of related to the movie. I did look a little bit into David Fincher's whole thing with music videos and Nine Inch Nails, because I thought that he might have directed the Closer video. Oh, no. Which he did not. Mark Romanek directed that. Yeah. But David Fincher was a really big fan of that video and wanted the title sequence to be very much in that vein and have that aesthetic. Yeah. And interestingly enough, David Fincher would later direct a Nine Inch Nails music video, the one for Only, which is like, I think the least dark Nine Inch Nails video there is. Sure. That is a weird one.
I like that video.
Oh, no, it's a great video. I love that song. With Teeth is honestly one of my favorite albums, which is funny. When I first heard it, I was a little, not underwhelmed. Well, okay, I really liked it, but I was a little underwhelmed because The Fragile was such this grandiose, giant album that was just so dense. And then this one was Nine Inch Nails kind of rocking out, which is
I've never been a huge fan of The Fragile.
Really?
Yeah.
I've always loved that album. Yeah. It is not my favorite, but it is pretty high up there. For me, and I know that I go against a lot of Nine Inch Nails fans' opinions. Okay, so for anybody listening who doesn't know this, Nine Inch Nails is my absolute favorite band. I have many times mentioned that Trent Reznor is one of my idols, and March of the Pigs is the whole reason that I decided to become a musician. But I actually think Nine Inch Nails has gotten better over time. Even though I absolutely love their early stuff, my favorite thing that they've done is the EP trilogy that they did at the end of the 10s. Probably my second favorite thing is Year Zero. Oh, yeah. Under that, I would probably say With Teeth and The Fragile, tied depending on my mood. Probably broken underneath that, and we don't really need to go down my entire list of Nine Inch Nails loves. I do love The Fragile. I also love With Teeth. That album is about to be 20 years old, which is fucking horrifying. It was also fun. They had like this series of listening parties for With Teeth. Were you at the one at Slim's?
Yeah.
Yeah. John and I were there too. It was a lot of fun, but I do remember
I was like number 2 in line.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, so we weren't that far behind you. I think we were like number 15.
Because I worked at Kinko's at the time and got off at 2 and walked my ass down there.
John and I deliberately got out there as quickly as we possibly could getting off of work because we knew that they were going to be handing out the records and posters.
That's where I hooked those people up.
Yeah. You told me about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really wanted to get that record, even though I wasn't into vinyl yet. I just thought that would be really cool to have, which it is. And, you know, now that I'm really into vinyl, it's great. I love having that record. But yeah, I do remember how excited everybody was to listen. And then they start playing the album and All the Love in the World is so subdued at the start. Mm-hmm. And I do remember looking around and everybody just being like, what the fuck is this?
I like this song.
No, that song is great. But most Nine Inch Nails albums do not start with like piano and actual singing and all that. Before this, it had been Pinion and Wish, Mr. Self-Destruct, and then Somewhat Damaged. And those are all such fucking punch in the face, like openers.
Yeah.
And this is just Trent Reznor singing over a piano and eventually kind of dancey beat comes in, but not really. I think the most fun thing about that incident was just about that event, besides getting to hear the new Nine Inch Nails album, was just looking around and seeing everybody be absolutely befuddled at what they're listening at. Then I do remember a lot of people like kind of complaining and being like, oh man, it's just kind of a rock and roll album. What? I don't know. I was expecting something different. And in most of the fan communities now, it's like considered one of the best albums. Way too long of a divergence onto Nine Inch Nails. And the last note that I really have for this, I swear to fucking God, 1995 Brad Pitt has got to be the most handsome man ever to fucking live. He looks so good in this.
I've never been into Brad Pitt, except for an interview with a vampire. But
I mean, he looks pretty good in that one too. But I think the short hair works on him more.
I don't like Tom Cruise at all.
Yeah, I mean, they're both... I can see
Antonio Banderas looks hella hot in that movie.
Okay, Antonio Banderas is absolutely just the top in like everything he was in for a very long time, and he's still a pretty handsome man.
Yeah, I've never been into Brad Pitt. He's fine.
I mean, I didn't find myself like sexually aroused or anything, but I was just looking at him and being like, man, he's kind of got like the perfect face, you know? Yeah, just really
in his
handsome
prime.
Dude. I think he looks better in this movie than in Interview with a Vampire, just because I think the short hair suits him more. Ooh, we should totally do Interview with a Vampire at some point.
Sure, it's my favorite vampire movie. I think it's great.
It is probably...
I also think it's better than the book. I'm not a fan of the book.
I am a fan of the book. I read all of those up through... The last one I read was The Vampire Armand, which I think was number 6. At that point... It was just, that book was basically just porn. It's just about Armand's master fucking him through the whole thing. Which it's in ancient Greece. So this also starts when Armand is a little too young, you know? If I remember correctly. Honestly, I was like just out of high school, I think, when I read this.
I haven't read them. I only read the one. And I didn't really like it, and it was not since like the movie came out. So
the Vampire Lestat was my favorite. Vampire Lestat and Queen of the Damned, I think, were the pinnacle of that series.
Yeah,
I was very disappointed in the Queen of the Damned movie.
You sure?
I don't know if it was a good movie on its own merits. I just know as somebody who read those books.
Nobody likes that movie. Okay. Well, that's not true. Some people do, but most people do not like that movie.
No, we should do an episode. Let's do an episode with Interview with the Vampire and Queen of the Damned. And we could just be like, this one's great, and this is trash.
Yeah. Aaliyah is great in it.
Aaliyah is great. Yeah, man, it is really a bummer that she died when she did. She had a very promising career ahead of her, and I don't know, are you aware of her and Trent Reznor and their plans? So they were actually really good friends, and if you go back and read interviews around the time of The Fragile, Trent Reznor is talking about how the next thing that he wants to do is a side project, which is going to have a female singer. And as it has kind of come out since then, she was going to sing in the side project and he was going to produce her next album. It's really a bummer. I would have loved to see what those two did together. Apparently Trent Reznor was a big fan and they were gonna do a bunch of work together, and that never happened because she died. How did she die again?
Plane crash.
That sucks. That's like not even like a drug overdose where you can be like, oh yeah, it was bound to happen. That's so fucking random and shitty.
Yeah.
All right. Who would you recommend Se7en for?
Everybody. I think everyone should see it. It's great.
Yeah. One of the best movies ever made.
Yep.
Legit
Love
masterpiece.
it.
Everyone should see it.
I guess if you just really can't handle anything dark, avoid it. But no, it's great.
I mean, honestly, even then, like, this is the kind of movie I would recommend to somebody who, if I'm having a conversation with somebody about movies and I'm like, Jesus Christ, you need to expand your horizons, this is one of the movies I would give them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right now, Se7en is not available to stream for free, but you can rent or buy it from YouTube, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Fandango at Home, Microsoft, and Spectrum.
Thank you for listening to Streaming Screams Podcast. You can follow us at our socials at Streaming Screams Pod for Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and SoundCloud.
You can also follow us on TikTok or on the dreaded Twitter/X at ScreamsPod. Thank you again for listening. We hope you're enjoying yourselves. Jessica, are you enjoying yourself?
Absolutely.
All right then, on to the next part of the show.
All right. And we are back.
Had to put on our long legs.
This fucking movie. Released in 2024, written by Osgood Perkins, directed by Osgood Perkins, with Mika Monroe as Lee Harker, an FBI agent assigned to the Longlegs case. She is highly intuitive, possibly to the point of being psychic. She also has a very flat affect and doesn't seem to have an easy time connecting to people. Blair Underwood as Agent Carter, Lee's superior officer who puts her on the Longlegs case. He is a bit of an odd duck himself. He's a friendly family man who seems to want to break past Lee's cold exterior. He also seems to have a drinking problem and may not be as happy with his life as he lets on. We've got Nic Cage as Dale Cobble, better known as Longlegs, a doll maker and elusive serial killer who worships Satan, has an obsession with glam rock, and has had plastic surgery to the point of completely ruining his face, perhaps with the goal of becoming a doll himself, and definitely with the goal of looking more attractive to Satan. He speaks in
I don't think they do a good job with this, though.
What do you mean?
It's not really explained or talked about.
Oh, the plastic surgery?
And him being even obsessed with glam rock, because some of the music he's listening to is not glam rock.
Oh, no. He's listening to glam rock the whole time.
No, my friend at work, we had a debate about this. He actually grew up during that time. He's like in his 60s. And there was one of the ones he's like, he's two main ones that he has posters of and listens to. And one of them, he's like, is not glam rock at all.
I mean, what was the one that wasn't? Because the music...
Something Rex.
T-Rex?
Yeah.
Yeah, T-Rex is totally glam rock.
I don't know them, but he was like, no, they're not.
Yeah. No, they're absolutely glam rock. I thought it was pretty obvious. I mean, that's why you have the T-Rex song at the end and T-Rex quote at the beginning.
No, but also the way he's dressed.
Again, hella glam rock. If you go, I swear to God, like I know what you're gonna say. If you go back and you look at pictures of Roxy Music or Mott the Hopple or T-Rex or David Bowie's band, the Spiders from Mars, back then, you'll see a ton of clothing just like this. And I actually think that his face, and this is kind of a weird one because I don't think Aerosmith was ever glam rock, but I have a suspicion that his face is kind of modeled after Steven Tyler.
Because one problem I had with this movie, watching it the first time and the second time, is I don't think that it is explicitly stated. It's anything, like the plastic surgery is not mentioned at all.
No, I think
even the glam rock thing, it's just you can kind of figure it out, but it's not really there. But I think he looks like he's dressed like a grandma, and it's like through the whole movie I was like, is he supposed to be trans? And Katie agreed.
I mean, that's not a surprise. Katie, I don't think, has any familiarity with glam rock.
Well, right, but I think a lot of people don't, especially nowadays. So there should have been more. I do think they should have emphasized this more.
I don't know. I mean, I honestly think...
And it might have been T-Rex. There was two things that he said came up a lot, and one of them he was like, no, they absolutely were not. And I was like, I don't know, man. Maybe he said T-Rex was and the other one wasn't. I don't remember.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know who the other one that he's referencing is, obviously.
He
but
said there's two posters in his room.
I don't remember who the posters were.
Yeah.
I know that he is listening to glam rock on the radio at one point. There is his outfit as well as,
like I said, I think he looks
hair.
his outfit looks like a grandma.
And well, I mean,
like an 80s grandma.
That's kind of how glam rockers looked. Their outfits were like,
I know what their
weird.
outfits look like, but
then also there's like the way he sings at that one point where he's doing the whole like, let me in now.
No, I know that, but I still just don't think. I only read about the plastic surgery and all the glam rocks and stuff. In no way do I think to the average person is it obvious.
Probably not to the average person. I caught on to the glam rock thing. I was not sure what was up with his face.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, it was supposed to be because he's trying to idolize the glam rock people who look like really pretty and feminine. But that's why, especially in today's climate, I do think it should have been more stated because I'm sure a lot of people just assumed he's like transgender.
That is possible.
And that's not great.
There is actually a moment where I did realize that he had plastic surgery while I was watching the movie, which is at the end when he bashes his face into the table and his nose breaks apart.
Again, I just don't think that's most people are going to.
Sure.
Also, I don't know how your nose would fall apart if you were doing that.
I don't know. Didn't Michael Jackson have an incident where most of his nose fell off on stage?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure there was an incident where basically his nose came off.
Yeah, but still, even if you had no plastic surgery, if you're bashing your face in like that, I don't know. Which we'll get to. But yeah. Anyways, I'm just saying that's one of my beefs with this movie is I don't think it's explicit and it can be confused that they're transgender, and I think that's a problem.
I can see where you're coming from. I personally disagree, but I also have listened to a shitload of glam rock, and I did catch it the first time.
Yeah, but I'm saying the average person would not.
The average person might not. He also speaks in a strange, sing-songy kind of high-pitched voice, and his mannerisms are just fucking bizarre.
Yeah.
We've got Alicia Witt as Ruth Harker, Lee's mother. While her affect isn't as flat as Lee's, it is certainly subdued. She's also religious.
She seems like she's on
religious.
She seems like she's on pills all the time. I'm not saying she is on pills. They don't say that. I'm just saying the way she's acting is like somebody drugged up on sedatives. Even the way when she calls and she's all like, Lee, and then goes,
you know what?
And it's like, yep, it's still your only daughter.
We will actually get to this because I think that is a talking point that I think we're going to hit on a little bit later.
Well, I think there's a reason Lee and the mom are like that.
Oh, I agree. And I think we're going to talk about it, but we will definitely get there.
Because some people have reached out to, what was her name? Mika? Something like that.
Yeah, Mika Monroe.
Saying that they thought she was autistic. And she's like, no, that was never considered or thought of when making it. But it's cool if you perceived it that way.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, no, because her mannerisms greatly change at the end for a reason.
Right. And she, there is a pretty big moment of release where it is very clear that she has changed.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll get to it.
So then we've got Kiernan Shipka as Carrie Ann Camera, Longlegs' only known survivor. She's been in a vegetative state in a psychiatric hospital since her family was killed, but after a recent visit from Longlegs, she has woken up and now seems to be somewhat under his control or at least influence. And we've got Michelle Choi Lee as Agent Browning, one of Harker's superiors. She seems to be a little more thoughtful and kind of comes across as the only normal person in this movie.
Yeah. And she comes across in some ways like Somerset in Se7en, and that she's like, no, this case, it's too soon.
Yeah. I think she actually says it's too soon.
Yeah.
Okay, note to self, I forgot to include Carter's family in this. So I'm going to have to record that and insert it later. Because I did want to put his wife and daughter in there. So, oops. Did you have anything particular you wanted to get into on this one?
Could say that Oz Perkins is the son of the guy who played Norman Bates.
I mean, do we
Psycho.
really need to say that? He's so quick to tell you himself.
I just don't think a lot of people, like, again, that aren't, like,
No, I know,
in the know.
I know. Okay, for anybody listening, which would hopefully be everybody listening. We did have this joking conversation a few weeks back about how Osgood Perkins is not afraid to let everybody know that he is the son of the dude from Psycho.
Yeah.
What was his name? Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Norman Bates. No. What is his name? Mr. Perkins.
Mr. Perkins.
Anthony Perkins. I did know that.
1974. In the Pacific Northwest, a young girl with a Polaroid camera sees a mysterious car pull up, and she investigates, following a weird voice yelling cuckoo to find Longlegs, his face just out of frame. The movie doesn't have a ton of jump scares, but this one is weirdly effective because all he does is bend down for like 2 frames.
Yeah.
And it is like the scariest thing in this movie.
He put on his long legs.
God, Nic Cage. So I have a feeling we're going to have a lot to say about him. He's a fucking weirdo in great ways. I love Nic Cage. All right, 1994, 20 years later, Harker and her partner are canvassing a suburban neighborhood looking for information on the whereabouts of a killer. She tells her partner that the killer is in a specific house despite no obvious indication that he's in there. Her partner knocks on the door to investigate and is immediately shot in the head. Later, the FBI gives her what seems to be a combination psychiatric evaluation as well as a psychic capability test. Agent Carter and Agent Browning discuss the results with her, and Carter says that she's either half psychic or just extremely intuitive. Because of this, he wants...
Because she got 8 right and 8 wrong.
Yeah, so specifically, it's like a random number generator between 0 and 100, including both 0 and 100. And out of 16 guesses as to what the number is, she gets 8 of them right, which is statistically bonkers.
Yeah, and he's like, how do you do that? She's like, well, I got 8 wrong.
Yeah, and the test starts with like a free association thing, where it's just showing her like abstract images.
Yeah, you're supposed to just say the first word.
Yeah. One thing that was interesting in this that I noticed this time that I didn't notice in theaters, because there's no reason to notice it in theaters, is there is a point where there's an upside down triangle shown, and the words that she associates with it is father, which, you know, the upside down triangle becomes a big thing later on.
Yeah.
Because of her extreme intuitiveness or half psychicness, Agent Carter wants to bring her onto the Longlegs case, which has been stumping the FBI continuously for about 30 years. Each case involves a father killing his whole family, including himself, but left behind, there's always a Zodiac-esque coded letter that is signed Longlegs. The only thing that the families seem to have in common is that there is a 9-year-old daughter with a birthday on the 14th of any given month, with the murders happening within 6 days, either before or after her birthday.
I thought it was always January 14th.
No, because the months are what make up the algorithm of the triangle. So Harker pores over the case files she's been given on the case, and after a long day, Carter asks Harker to accompany him for a drink while she fills him in on what she has found. He drinks too much and asks her to drive him home. And then once there, he insists that she come in to meet his family.
She's so fucking awkward.
She is so awkward. And what's really funny is when he's like, do you want to come in and meet the wife and kid? Her response is, do I have to? Which is so good. Despite Harker's strange affect and complete awkwardness, the daughter, Ruby, seems to take an immediate liking to her and asks her to come to Ruby's birthday party in a week. Surprisingly, Harker immediately agrees.
Yeah.
After this, Harker calls her equally odd mother. They have a strange conversation where her mother is sort of badgering her about saying her prayers.
Yeah.
And then Harker hears a whisper followed by a knock at the door. She looks outside to see a shadowy figure in the distance.
Yeah, this whole scene, too, is like filmed in a way where like she's in the corner on the phone. So it makes you automatically assume something's going to happen behind her. And you're like looking behind her and then nothing happens. There's a lot of that in this movie.
There is. But there is actually something behind her, which I'm sure you'll get into later. But in the doorway behind her, there is the devil.
No, not until later.
No, I watched this whole video where they broke down all of these. You have to crank up the brightness a little bit, but he is there. Which, even if you have to crank up the brightness, I don't know. Maybe your brain is picking up on it, and maybe it's just adding to the unsettling thing. But yeah. So anyway, she sees a shadowy figure in the distance. She goes out to investigate, and when she does, Longlegs slips into her house and leaves a birthday card with more coded writing on it. This time there is also some letters that give her the first clue that she needs to actually start decoding everything.
Also, just highly unethical that she opens this letter and doesn't tell anybody.
Yeah, but I think there's a reason for that.
Oh, sure. But even like later, because she's decoded something else, and they're like, how'd you do it? I just stared at it long enough. And it's like, you just saw this letter.
Yeah, well, I took the implication to be that she figured out the code. She was telling him she figured out the code earlier when she said that, because he said there is such a thing as looking too long when he finds her asleep on the floor.
Yeah, but she wasn't looking at the letters then.
There were letters included. She had all of the evidence scattered out in front of her. So letters included, but it wasn't the only thing she was looking at.
Yeah.
So another family is found. This one has been dead for at least a month. Afterwards, Harker calls her mom to let her know that she'll be busy with work for a while. And it's kind of a bland phone call, but there is one interesting thing, which is that there's a buzzing and static, like clicking on the phone line, which will come into play a little bit later.
Yeah, but also too, I know it's like a thing, but also if you grew up in the 90s when there was phones, you remember sometimes you would be on a call and you would all of a sudden just hear like somebody else faintly.
Yeah,
like you would pick up other people's calls sometimes.
Yeah.
It wasn't like often all the time, but it would just be like randomly you're on the phone and then all of a sudden you hear someone else talking and they can't hear you. You're just hearing one side of someone else's conversation.
Yeah, it was super weird. I do remember that. And it would always like kind of freak you out when it happened.
Because at first you're like, is somebody else on the phone? And then you're like, oh, because it would always be like faint and fuzzy and like.
Yeah. And this kind of has that feel, but there's a lot more static and a lot more this like clicking noise.
Yeah. Also, I meant to mention earlier, but I don't know why. I find it super funny that in like the chief's office, there's just like a big picture of Bill Clinton behind his desk. They're just like, this is the 90s.
Well, I think that's a whole FBI thing, because if you go back and rewatch any episode of The X-Files, whenever they go into Skinner's office, there's a giant picture of Bill Clinton behind him until Bush is elected, and then there's a giant picture of Bush.
Is that a real thing?
Well,
is it a real thing though?
I don't know. It might have been something that he got from the X-Files, you know?
I don't know. It's just every time they're in his office, it cracks me up. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's just like, we're in the 90s.
I mean, if you couldn't tell from the decor and the everything else, the lack of cell phones, the use of landlines.
I don't think the lack of cell phones. I actually, in a lot of movies where they make some stupid excuse why there's no cell phones. I mean, maybe it's just because I don't know if the younger generation would feel the same way, but I think a lot of the times if you just don't mention it, I don't even think about it.
Oh, I agree.
But then when you make some stupid reason, I'm like, well, now it's like, that's stupid.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. The reason why it stands out in this movie is because they do use the phone a lot.
Yeah, and they use like a payphone.
Yeah, which, I mean, you see them once in a while, but I honestly can't remember the last time I saw a functioning payphone.
Functioning is key.
Yeah.
In the city, there's payphones around, but most of them don't work.
But even like the one payphone that I've always known the exact location of, the one outside of the mall here, the last time I went in there, the little booth thing was still there, but the phone itself was gone.
Yeah.
After this, she is able to decode the birthday card, which leads to her decoding the rest of the letters. She also figures out that when lined up on a calendar, the birth dates form an upside-down triangle, much like one that she saw in occult books she was using for research. However, one date seems to be missing. So one thing that bothers me in this is they do talk about the whole upside down triangle thing, but like I watched this scene a couple times and I swear to God, there's like a diamond and she folds it in half or something. Like, I don't think it actually did make a triangle.
No, it does, but it's the piece of paper she has, isn't it? It's not like, because it's not a calendar. It's like a year and then all the dates listed.
Yeah.
And so I think she's just folding down the part that doesn't matter. I like this movie, but it's not as clean as Se7en.
It is not. There's a lot about it that doesn't make sense on first watch, and quite a bit about it that still doesn't make sense after the third watch.
Yeah, but you can just...
But it doesn't matter.
It's Se7en.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it's Se7en. We already said it a bunch, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we already mentioned him being
That's
in the
what I
doorway.
said.
But yeah. The letters lead her and Carter to the Camera family farm, which this drove me nuts that the family's name is Camera, because
I thought it was Cameron.
No, it's Camera, which was annoying to me when we saw it in theaters because I was like, what do you mean the Camera family? Like I initially, when they talk about it, I thought it might have been like someplace where cameras are manufactured.
Yeah.
Because I've never heard of anybody. I've never heard Camera as a last name.
No. That's why I said I thought it was Cameron.
Yeah. No, it's Camera, which is just fucking weird. So the letters lead her and Carter to the Camera family farm. One of the Camera's daughters, Carrie Ann, is the only known survivor of Longlegs' killings. And hidden in the farm, they find a handmade life-size doll, which they bring back to the forensics lab. And honestly, one of the weirdest scenes in the fucking movie.
Yeah, when they pull out the doll, it's just like, what the fuck?
Oh, I meant the forensic examiner scene. But yeah, it is really weird. At first, I thought it was like a body.
Yeah.
And then they pull it out and it's a doll.
Yeah.
With like rotting hair.
Yeah. Which I just find dolls creepy in general. I've never liked dolls.
I've never been a huge fan of dolls. Yeah. It's weird. No, dolls are creepy as fuck. So the forensic examiner finds a metal ball inside of the doll's head, and the ball is hollow, but when a sonogram is put to it, you can hear a static hum and clicking and almost a whisper sound, and it's very similar to what we heard on the phone with Harker and her mom, Ruth.
Yeah.
The sound also seems to cause Harker to see images of snakes, followed by a vision of Longlegs talking to the doll, and I think she sees this from the doll's point of view.
Yeah.
Calling it Carrie Ann. The examiner also comments on the craftsmanship of the doll with a really strange and almost creepy air of reverence and admiration. And he also mentions that the other night he thought that the metal ball was whispering his ex-wife's name.
Yeah. I also find it weird, like, I don't know how they would, like, investigate something like this, but it's like they're in an autopsy room.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's a life-size doll.
I know, but...
Yeah, it's just going to throw it on the...
Not a metal... Like, I don't know.
I
I said, I don't know. It just seems weird. Like, it's like almost the exact... It's just...
I mean...
I don't think you would bring it to where there's, like, corpses and shit. It looks literally like... it's the morgue.
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure it is the morgue. I actually thought that it makes sense because that is the size and shape, and if he's going to be pulling it apart...
I'm sure they have other places that they investigate, or, like, look into, like, evidence that's not
sure.
remains.
But this is where, like, the x-rays and the sonograms would be, which he was, we do see that they were x-raying and sonogramming everything.
I don't know.
I didn't find that part weird. I just think his weird admiration is creepy. And, of course, it whispering his ex-wife's name to him.
Yeah.
But that, plays into things as well. Mm-hmm. Harker and Carter decide to pay a visit to Carrie Ann Camera, the only survivor of Longlegs' attacks, and they find out that she had a visitor recently who checked in using Harker's name before talking to Carrie Ann.
This is also funny because they ask, do you check IDs? And they're like, no, actually we don't, but that's probably a good idea.
This character was so weird. He's actually one of the weirdest characters in the whole thing. I don't know why. He's got this like weird androgynous quality to him.
Yeah.
And this sort of quirky way of talking that seems almost Southern, but like not.
Yeah.
Which is also weird because they're in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, people move and all that, sure.
Yeah.
But he seems out of place in this whole movie, which also in a weird way makes him fit in because everything is out of place in this movie.
Yeah.
So after talking to Carrie Ann, and
I also love the way she talks in this. I surely do.
Just be happy as peaches to watch your heart go pop, pop.
Yeah.
She is fucking weird. I did notice that she pluralizes words in a weird fashion, which I know is a thing.
Yeah.
But the only other person who does that in this movie is Longlegs. And he doesn't do it nearly as often, but there's like just a couple of times where he does pluralize these random words.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Caught it. But yeah, ever since the visitor, she has woken up and seems to be acting kind of normally, at least according to that weird-ass guy they were talking to. But she is clearly under some kind of influence from Longlegs.
Yeah, she also seems sedated.
She does seem sedated, which again is a theme that we'll get into here.
Yeah.
But yeah, she does have this sedated feel to her. She does have this weird way of talking, and she does express a love for Longlegs and says, you know, if he asked me to kill myself, I would do it.
Yeah.
And if he asked me to kill you, I would do it.
Yeah.
Which is all pretty weird.
Pretty normal. You know, she's acting normal.
As Carrie Ann talks about what she remembers, we get a flashback that shows kind of how the doll seemed to influence the family. We see the mother playing erotically with a knife before stabbing the doll a bunch of times. And we see the dad sitting with the doll in his lap, talking to it like it was his daughter, before we see him killing all the cattle on the farm and then killing a visiting priest and finally the mom.
Yeah.
And
a lot of it's through the doll's perspective.
I think oh, no, the stabbing of the doll is not. But yeah, most of it is through the doll's perspective. So after this visit, Carter now suspects that Harker has some kind of connection to Longlegs. So he does some digging and finds that Harker's mom, Ruth, had filed a police report about an intruder the day before Harker's 9th birthday. And her birthday does fall on the 14th. So under Carter's instruction, Harker visits her mom to question her about the incident. Ruth is cryptic, evasive, and vague, but does direct Harker to her childhood bedroom where she finds a stack of Polaroid pictures. Of course, she is the little girl from the beginning of the movie, and one of the pictures is of Longlegs, which she uses this photo to put out an APB, leading to his arrest.
Isn't this also where she notices that their basement door is locked? It has like padlocks on it, and she doesn't seem to really react. She notices it, and then doesn't doesn't seem to react to it.
Well, she notices it, and then she starts to reach for the keys, but then her mom calls for her, and it's like she immediately forgets.
Which the mom mentions too when she visits the house. She forgets things.
Right. With this photograph, they're able to arrest Longlegs. I think I forgot to include the scene with Longlegs at the hardware store.
Yeah, that's Oz Perkins' daughter, too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Weird.
But it is funny because she's all like, Dad, the weird guy's here. The gross guy's here.
The gross man is back. Yeah.
Because he covers his face and is like, cuckoo.
Yeah. But like...
What is with the cuckoo thing?
I don't know. So you know what's funny? When we were getting ready to see this and Cuckoo in theaters, I kept getting them mixed up specifically because of the cuckoo thing.
Yeah.
So I kept thinking that really creepy trailer for Longlegs with the dad's phone call, with the dad's 911 call, I kept thinking that was for Cuckoo. And then Cuckoo is a fucking completely different movie, which is also really good.
Yeah,
but
it's very weird.
It is also very weird, but again, in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, we are living in a really good time for weird-ass horror.
I agree. A lot of people don't, but, fuck them.
A lot of people just want the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, to each their own, different tastes.
It's the same reason anytime you ask somebody like what their favorite album from any artist is, it'll always be like one of the first three and almost always the one that they broke out on. I also noticed, while surfing around the web, these articles that are like all of X band's albums ranked, and you're like, And you always knew what number one was going to be.
Sure.
Because it's going to be the obvious one, even though it's clearly never their best album. Or, rarely their best album. Going back to Nine Inch Nails, since we've mentioned them a million times in this, every time you see one of those lists, Downward Spiral's going to be at the top. Maybe The Fragile, but almost never. It's always Downward Spiral. And it's absolutely not his best album. It's a great album. I love it. It was life-changing for me because it inspired me to become a musician.
Yeah.
But absolutely not his best album. Yeah, I don't know, man. People just like what's familiar. I understand the appeal of that, but as an artist and as somebody who appreciates when artists of any sort evolve or step out of whatever they're doing or try something different or experimental, it always irritates me. Yeah. Everybody just wants the same fucking thing over and over again. Boring. Y'all are boring. Not our listeners, obviously. Y'all are sophisticated. But people are fucking boring. So Harker realizes that her birthday is the missing date from the Upside Down Triangle and believes that Longlegs must have an accomplice who will commit the next murder to fill in that gap. She interrogates Longlegs, who hints at Ruth being involved somehow, before he says, "Hail Satan," and slams his head into the interrogation room table, smashing his face and killing himself.
You'd have to hit your head. Like, how sturdy is this table? Like, it'd be hard to kill yourself that way. At least that quickly.
True. Although parts of his face fall apart when he hits the table.
I know, but that wouldn't necessarily kill you, especially right away.
No, but you would bleed out, and it might knock you out, and then you'd bleed out.
Yeah, but he's like in a place where he's gonna get like attention soon. I'm not saying it's a problem, but I'm just like, to kill you quickly, it would have to be pretty fucking hard.
You know what I find weird about this is after he does this, Carter is livid with Harker.
Yeah, like she did something.
Like she did something wrong.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's a reason for this.
Just want someone to blame because you're like, well, we got the guy and now...
And now he's dead. And also Carrie Ann has committed suicide.
Yeah.
He mentions. This was such a weird goddamn scene. I don't know. You know, Carter himself, like I said, he's an odd duck. He's not a very rational person.
Yeah.
He's got his drinking problem and yells at Harker for this for some goddamn reason. And Agent Browning drives Harker to Ruth's home because they need to bring in Ruth for questioning. But she says Harker shouldn't be driving after what she has just been through. She seems to be the only real normal person in this movie.
Sure.
And actually seems to care about Harker's well-being.
Also, it's probably unethical to have like a detective go pick up their family member in reference to a case.
One would think so. I would feel like there would be a conflict of interest there.
Yeah.
Especially the way they found out.
Yeah.
When it seems like Harker herself was almost a victim, and there's clearly a suspicion that maybe she didn't say anything on purpose.
Yeah.
Even though that is not the case. Either way, Agent Carter's a dick about this. So Agent Browning drives Harker to Ruth's home. Harker goes inside, and when she does, Ruth kills Agent Browning with a shotgun.
This is also weird to me because she shoots her from one side, then
And then
goes,
she goes
on the other
around
side
and
and
shoots
shoots her
her on the other
again.
side.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah, this was super bizarre.
Why? I can see shooting her twice.
Yeah,
but why did you go to the other side of the car?
Yeah, that seemed really weird to me. Again, it's one of those things that I'm sure there's an explanation for it.
Yeah.
But what that explanation is, I will probably never know.
Yeah.
I do really love this scene, particularly when the camera is focused on Agent Browning in the car. And they do a really good job of like disguising Ruth in the background because she's in frame the whole time.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
she looks like she's part of the tree line
Right.
until she starts moving. Harker chases her mom down and finds her with a doll, obviously made by Longlegs, that looks just like Harker as a child. Harker informs Ruth that Longlegs is dead, to which she responds that he is freed, and says that she is now freeing Harker before she shoots the doll in the head with a shotgun.
Yeah.
This
Poof
is
of smoke comes out.
it's interesting because when this happens, a bunch of smoke puffs out of Harker's head, and that same type of black smoke is pouring out of the doll's head.
Yeah.
And then Harker like passes out. And at this point, we learn via flashback, maybe dream, that Ruth had made a deal with Longlegs, wherein she would be his accomplice if he allowed Harker to live when he came to their home.
Which there was times where they said like you were allowed to grow up.
Yeah, so there's actually a ton of clues that Ruth is involved in this.
Yeah.
And I actually have them listed, or at least I have the ones that I noticed listed. So when Agent Carter says this reads like something out of Manson, Harker mentions, well, Manson had his family.
Yeah.
And that's a little more of an obscure one, but it is like kind of a hint.
Well, no, that also had to do with that's when they're talking about how they don't think he was there. Like this whole movie,
Right.
the whole time they do think there is an accomplice.
Well, no, they think that he is somehow getting the fathers to do this, which is what he's doing.
Yeah.
But that conversation is the first time that they discuss that there should be that there's probably an accomplice. So there's the mentioning of the Manson family, which is more of a clue from the director to us than it is a clue between them. But we hear that sound on the phone. Longlegs first appears to her as she is talking to her mom. Her mom has this insistence that Harker say her prayers to keep her safe from the devil.
Yeah.
Which she later says our prayers don't do anything for us.
Yeah.
Carrie Ann mentions that either Harker or somebody who looked just like her had been to their house.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, Ruth. Her mom mentions that she had seen her share of nasty things. She couches it as having been a nurse, but this is clearly what she's actually referring to.
Yeah.
Her mom has this really secretive and suspicious behavior and expression when Harker asks about the intruder the day before her birthday.
And she literally says, I tried to forget about.
She says, I've forgotten as much as I could for both of our sakes.
Yeah.
But also, if you just look at the look on her face when she goes, I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
Why? Do you remember something? But her eyes go wide and she sucks in her lips with that whole
Yeah.
like this whole, what do you know?
Yeah.
Sort of attitude.
Well, also Longlegs goes, we laughed and you went into law enforcement. Well, at least I did.
Yeah. So he says that, and then when Harker says, who is she? He says, the seventh she. And then he starts talking about how white the houses were, and he references the house after Harker's as being the eighth house. Yeah. And then, of course, her mom has this real sinister anger when she says, you're an adult because you were allowed to grow up.
Yeah.
Which Harker does not understand what that means, although I'm sure she understood it later. Like, it is really heavily hinted at through the whole thing that Harker's mom is involved, but it still was kind of surprising when it happened. So Ruth had made this deal with Longlegs where she would be an accomplice if he allowed Harker to live. And at this point, he began living in their basement, and that's where he constructs more of the dolls. Ruth's job was to bring the dolls to the family's home while disguised as a nun and tell them that it's a gift from the church. And
they won.
Yeah. So fucking weird.
Yeah.
And from within the dolls, Satan would force the fathers to kill their family. Also, Harker's doll is what made her forget and what made her never notice that Longlegs was living in their basement.
Oh, and also how they always talk about the man downstairs.
Yeah.
Talking about both Longlegs and the devil.
Right.
And they're literally the man downstairs.
Yeah, that is another way that they were sort of hinting at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the doll made Harker forget, made her not see Longlegs. It's also implied that Harker's whole half-psychic intuition is due to this doll's influence. After this, Lee wakes up in the basement and answers a phone call where a strange voice warns her that she's about to miss Ruby's 9th birthday party. And this is what I think both of us were talking about earlier. This is like a huge turning point for Harker as her subdued affect goes away.
Yeah, she's very animated.
She's suddenly very animated, very emotional. We join her in the car and she is just screaming frantically. And through the rest of this movie, she actually does clearly have emotion up to a certain point. Lee rushes to save the Carters, and she's mostly too late because Ruth is there with Ruby's doll, which has already taken hold of the family.
So the doll for Ruby and the doll for Harker when she's little, I think look exactly like the actresses, but the one for Carrie Ann doesn't. I don't think look like her. Also,
I think that might just be because of the decayed hair.
No, the second time I watched it, I really was because I noticed it the first time I watched it. So the second time I was and I'm no, it doesn't look like her. But this is also okay. A lot of people don't like this ending. I like the ending fine, except for
I think it works. Yeah.
The only thing, and because if she's not under his spell anymore, why does she just let Cooper go kill his wife? She doesn't do jack shit. She just stands there.
So I think that she is becoming under the influence of the new doll too.
No, because the dolls are individual to the family.
Sure. But as you mentioned, she does just let things play out, even though she does kill Carter. I mean, we're already ahead of what we're talking about. But she does kill Carter and she does kill her mom.
Yeah.
But when she tries to shoot the doll, her gun won't go off. But she also tells Ruby that we need to leave, but she remains transfixed on the doll.
Yeah.
I think that the doll is starting to work its way into her too. And maybe it could be considered that, an argument could be made that metaphorically, since she and Ruby connected so quickly in that weird way, that maybe, maybe she's kind of considered part of the family in a way. Or, you know what?
That's a stretch.
But honestly, that is a stretch. But really just, if the devil's hiding in the doll, as Carrie Ann says, or as we learn in the flashback, not from Carrie Ann, but the one that Ruth narrates, then yeah, there shouldn't be any reason he can't start exerting his influence on her there. And she can't shoot the doll, apparently. That is getting ahead of ourselves, because she does arrive at the Carters, but Ruth is there with Ruby's doll, which has already taken hold of the family. Carter does kill his wife off screen, which Harker seems weirdly powerless to stop.
Her mom says she's already dead.
Her mom does say she's already dead.
She's like, the woman's already dead. And the child or something will be soon.
What's really interesting in this scene is the way the family behaves. Like, they seem on some level aware of what's happening.
Yeah, because she's like, oh, go get the kitchen and get the cake, and the wife, and she's like, I'll be right back. And then Carter's like, well, I'll be back.
You'll still be in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, there's a moment where she's mentioning cutting the cake.
Yeah.
And she, even as she's talking, she like gasps and seems like she's about to burst out crying.
Yeah.
But then goes right back to her falsely cheery affect.
Yeah.
And there is also a moment where Carter is mentioning cutting the cakes, and he seems very upset, like he's about to do something that he doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
But he is still maintaining that same weird affect. And his isn't as cheery. He does sort of like jump down her throat.
Yeah.
But all of them have this weird affect now. It is a weird reversal. Now everybody's acting like Harker, and Harker's acting like a normal person.
Yeah.
So it's pretty wild.
They have a lot of names that sound alike.
Harker and Carter.
And Ruby and Ruth.
Yeah. Again, sure, it's deliberate.
Is it?
It's gotta be.
I don't know.
So Carter does kill his wife off screen, and we hear her being stabbed a whole bunch of times while Ruth and Harker are kind of having this almost standoff.
Yeah.
But after Carter kills his wife, he comes towards Ruby, obviously aiming to kill her too. And this is when Harker shoots him dead. At which point, Ruth lunges at Harker with a knife, but Harker shoots her in the head. And this is where Harker tries to shoot the doll, but her gun won't fire. And staring kind of transfixed on it, she tells Ruby that they need to leave.
Yeah.
And that's when we go to credits.
No, it doesn't.
Oh,
That's
wait.
where it should go to credits. And it doesn't.
Right. No, we cut to Longlegs.
Well, no, first it cuts to her mom with blood all over her hands, big like, like spinning around and like this. And then it cuts to Longlegs that says, "Hail Satan." I don't like that part of the ending. I think it should end on like, her trying to shoot the thing and then being like, we gotta go. Because one, it's like, I thought her mom was like only a willing participant because she wanted to like save her daughter, not because she's an actual Satan worshiper. And they made it seem like she relished in doing these, which maybe she does. But also, like, did we need the Hail Satan thing again? I think it should have ended in the house.
I think that the mom fell fully under the influence, because one of the things that Longlegs...
I still just don't think it's necessary.
Well, one of the things that Longlegs says when he's telling Harker about the choice is he says you can either destroy the gift and destroy yourself, or you can bow all the way down.
Sure.
The implication to my mind is that it's not enough to pay lip service. You have to actually get into it.
Yeah, that's fair. I
And
still
Ruth
just think it
does
should have
say-
ended.
Ruth does also say during this last scene, she says "Hail Satan" at one point.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
I just like, it's cool imagery, but I was like, I don't think it's necessary, or does it add anything? And especially like, him saying "Hail Satan" again, having that scene in the...
And then blowing the kiss to the camera.
Yeah, I think that cheapens it. I think it should have ended with them just in the house being like, yeah, we gotta go.
I don't have particularly strong feelings on that, one way or the other. There is also something that I noticed, which there is a theme of traumatic births in this movie. Harker's mom mentions that Harker's birthday is coming up, and she says, "What a day that was. I bled and bled bled and bled." And then later, when they are talking to Carrie Ann remarks that her mother always hated her because she came out wrong and bled her up too much.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, obviously, these are the only two that we ever talked to, but I think we can infer that this is something that happens to all the victims' mothers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And then, do you want to talk about Satan being hidden everywhere?
Honestly, I didn't look up like a ton of stuff about this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I watched it like recently and I didn't really have time.
Oh, okay.
Normally I do, but
I only looked it up because you mentioned it to me. Because
Yeah.
I saw, there's one that I think is really obvious in the woods.
obviously.
But I thought that was the only time.
No, because there's also, I know, I don't know all of them because I didn't look it up, but there's also one time in the house, the doll, I think, is covered when they come in, and there's eyes that are there, and then they fade away.
Yeah, I think that actually happens with the dolls a few times.
Yeah.
But so after you told me about this, because you mentioned that there's numerous times it appears.
Yeah, I just didn't take note of it this time. I should have.
Oh, I actually looked it up because of this, because
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. There's a few times you can see him in the window. There's a lot of frames.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of frames where he is in the shadows, sometimes far away and sometimes not. It's interesting because he's almost always really clearly visible, but you kind of have to be looking for him to see it. And the one that...
Well, like I said, this movie is very shot like usually there's like a shoulder and then you could see the background.
Yeah. The one appearance that really surprised me that I noticed second time, I think, before I looked it up, was at the end when, after she comes in, Agent Carter angrily slams the door, and in the windows of that door, you can see the devil's reflection, and he is standing right there.
Oh, yeah.
Super weird movie. Don't necessarily know that I understand any of what it means.
Yeah.
But
and I've heard people say that they don't think this has a Se7en or Silence of the Lambs vibe, which I think is crazy. Is it as good as either of those movies? No. But it's like you got the new rookie FBI detective person. You got people thinking that they're too like young to be in there. You have an elusive killer that is doing something in a way that they've never seen before.
Yeah.
It's in the 90s. Like, it's crazy to say that it doesn't at least have that vibe.
Yeah, I think it totally does.
Clearly not as good, but I still think it's pretty good.
This movie has a very weird vibe.
They probably don't like that it has to actually do with Satan.
Yeah.
There's no supernatural stuff in the other ones.
True. So the vibes that I got from this, I got a slightly different vibe. For me, it feels like, it does feel like a combination of Se7en, Silence of the Lambs, The X-Files definitely, and weirdly enough, Napoleon Dynamite.
With just the weird people.
Yeah, just with the weird affect that everybody has and the weird dialogue.
Or Fargo.
Yeah. It just has that same sort of like, nobody's acting like real people.
Yeah.
The second time I was watching this, I did kind of chuckle myself because just halfway through, I was like, this is like if Napoleon Dynamite was a horror movie. But yeah, absolutely. I think it has to be heavily influenced by Se7en. It's got to be heavily influenced by Silence of the Lambs.
Well, he straight up said it.
And honestly, I'm also going to put the X-Files in there too. It really feels like a lot of X-Files.
Yeah, I can see that.
Not just with like the FBI connection, but like there is just this vibe, particularly in the episodes that don't take place in cities and that are in like more suburby areas.
Yeah.
It does have that feel. Who would you recommend this movie for?
I guess people who like all those things we just listed.
Yeah, I think if you're one of those people who enjoys artsy shit, like artsy horror, but also enjoys sort of hokey shit.
Yeah.
Like if you enjoy both of those things, you'll probably like this movie, like we were just talking about. Se7en, Silence of the Lambs, X-Files, and weirdly enough, Napoleon Dynamite. Yeah. You'll probably like this movie. And
you'll surely do.
It is really weird, like, because it does have that, like, artsy, I know we both hate this term, elevated horror term. I know. I hate it too. I only ever use it because
it's the
people
term
know
now.
what you're talking about. But it does have that vibe. But it also does have that, like, schlocky horror movie nonsense with Nicolas Cage being a fucking weirdo. Yeah. The fact that it's Satan is the main bad guy.
Yeah. And it like, yeah.
Like if there was
he's real, he's there.
Yeah, if there was one thing that I was not expecting when I went into this movie the first time, it was for it to be a whole Satan worshiper serving Satan.
I knew
thing.
it had supernatural stuff in it, but yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it at closest would be something like a King Payment in Hereditary.
Sure.
You know, like maybe a stand-in of some sort.
Or like just because you're a devil worshiper doesn't mean it's actually the devil.
Right. But yeah, the fact that it turned out to actually be the devil controlling what's going on was not what I was expecting, and is really hokey in this way that I was not expecting in this movie.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of adds to the feel, because this movie is really this weird combination of like artsy and kitsch.
Yeah.
Fucking weird movie. I really like it. I assume you really liked it.
Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's messier than like Seven is. It's not a masterpiece, but it's fun. It's a good one.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it I would say that I love both movies. I wouldn't call this a masterpiece like I would call Seven a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I will forever say that Seven is one of the best movies ever made.
100%. It's just so well written.
Good.
Seven is so well written, and like all the acting is just so good and so well done. Where this, I will say, could have maybe done with another draft.
I could see that. Yeah. I think I agree. Seven is nearly perfectly executed for what it is. This is very well executed for what it's supposed to be. I just don't.
I love the way it looks.
The vibe of this movie is honestly the best part.
Yeah.
Just
turn off your brain and watch it.
Yeah. But there is this prevalent dread through the whole thing.
Yeah. Which I like in movies because I can't
too.
remember the last time I was ever scared or anything. So being disturbed or having that feeling of just like dread, like that to me is very successful. Like,
I think when you've watched enough horror movies, dread is about the best you can expect.
Yeah.
The only movie that I would say made me feel actual fear in the last 20 years, I know somebody listening to this is going to want to give me shit for saying this, is Skinamarink.
Oh, yeah.
But, we should totally do that one someday. It'll be like a 5-minute episode because it'll just be like, I don't know, the camera looks at parts of the house and that's what happens.
There's a ceiling.
Yeah,
There's a hall.
There's a hallway.
There's a door. Now there's not a door.
The toilet disappears.
Yeah.
We watched this cartoon on loop like 100 times. We should totally do that movie.
I mean, we just did.
Nah, I want to do it for real though. Even though that requires watching it twice. I don't know, which I'm down to watch it again. I don't know how I would make it through an analytical watch of that. It'd just be like, what is the meaning of this hallway? What is this corner all about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really the only movie that has made me feel anything like fear over the last 20, 30 years. I think dread is the most that I can generally hope for.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons I love The Witch so much.
Yeah.
And It Follows. I got that dread from both of them. And similarly, I did get that dread from this.
Yep.
It's a really good one.
And it got that grimy 90s feel. It doesn't just take place in the 90s. It's
Yeah,
got that.
it very much feels like a 90s movie.
Yeah.
Which I know for me is very nostalgic.
Yeah.
And kind of comforting in this disturbing,
grown up in the
grimy
90s.
way. Yeah. As somebody who absolutely came of age to Nirvana and Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
This is a good one.
Longlegs is available to rent or buy on Amazon, Apple, Fandango at Home, Plex, and Spectrum. Unfortunately, it is not streaming free at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's about all we have. Jessica, play us out.
I worship God, so now I kill. I worship Satan, so now I kill.